Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Today is our 7th lesson and we are going to cover the div tag and the span tag. We are also going to cover inline styles using a style attribute on our elements. And we're also going to cover some HTML5 tags that are very similar to div and span. We're going to do a little CSS. We're going to show you how to move things around with CSS and add a little style. So, hope you enjoy the lesson. You ready to go, Nicholas?
Yes.
All right, let's get to it.
Vida.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Zoo. This is Shane, and I have my son Nicholas with me.
Hello.
And I've got my daughter Jai with me.
Hi.
So this is our 7th lesson in the HTML Coding Zoo series. This lesson we're going to go over several things, so it's going to be kind of quick. So feel free to stop the video in the middle and catch up with us if you get behind. The first few things we're going to go over is an HTML element called span and another element called div. We're going to show you the difference in those two. And then we're going to show you a few HTML5 elements, and those elements could be used in place of div. Although you'll learn to use div and span quite a bit. It's very powerful later on. It's how you group things, basically. And another thing we're going to cover also is inline styles. We're going to learn to start using a little bit of CSS and styling up the HTML data. So before we get started, I wanted to shout out real quick to a cousin of ours. His name is Ethan. His mother just told me today that he's probably going to be joining us in the coding lessons. I hope it's a good learning experience for you, man, and definitely get in touch with me if you have any input on how we can make it better for you. Or if you have any questions, just give us a holler. You guys haven't met Ethan yet. He's 18, and he's in a different state. So you want to say hi to him?
Hello. Hi.
So, glad to have you, man. Hope you enjoy it. So, you guys ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so enough talk. Let's go ahead and get started. If you've been following along, we have the code from Lesson 6. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Coding Zoo folder. Double-click on Coding Zoo. Right-click on index.html. And I'm going to choose Open with Notepad. Okay, so now I have Notepad open. The code is where we left it with lesson 6. I'm going to go at the top. On this part, you don't have to follow. You don't have to actually code this part. I just want to show you guys real quick. Are you watching, Jai?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to type in a sentence. I'm going to type my name is Shane. I love to program. Jai needs to wake up. I've got the sentence, my name is Shane. I'm going to put the tag span, less than, S-P-A-N. Close that off. I'm going to go to the end of the word Shane. Type in the closing tag for span. I'm going to go back to span. Last week we learned about HTML attributes, the element attributes, and how they help describe elements or tell the element what to do. This lesson we're going to learn about the style attribute. The style attribute can be used on most HTML elements, not just span, but almost all of them. Okay, so I type in style equals, double quote, type in border. So I'm going to tell the span that I want a border around it. So B-O-R-D-E-R. I'm going to make it 1 pixel. A pixel is basically 1 dot. So I'm saying 1 px. So you notice I'm saying I want a border, and then I'm telling how large the border. Before I put how large, I put a colon. So border, colon, 1 px, and then you put semicolon. It should always end with semicolon. So this is the style. This is how a style looks. You always have a name and a value. So I've got the name border, colon, and value, and then semicolon. It's always name, colon, value, semicolon. Got it?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and say I want a solid line. So I'm typing the word solid, and I'm going to type the word black. Say I want it to be black. Okay. There's different ways you can make this border. You can make it a dotted line or different colors. I won't go into that. We'll learn those things later on. But I just wanted to show you. This is how you set an inline style. Okay? So I'm going to save it. File. Save. Going to go back to the index.html file in the folder. Double click. Bring it up. Okay, so you can see at the top of my screen I have the sentences, my name is Shane. I love to program. Jai needs to wake up, and her cell phone is too loud. I don't actually have that on there, but her cell phone is too loud. We just cut it out. Anyway, okay. So is Shane is surrounded with the border. So that is showing the outline of the span. That's the span box. You got it? So I put span. I put is Shane inside two elements called span. And I said I want that span to have a border. So what you are seeing there is a span. That's what it's called. It's a grouping of elements. You understand? You understand, Jai?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If I wanted to, I've got those grouped together, right? So if I wanted to, I could do this. Background dash color, and I want it to be red. So because I grouped them together, I can do things to them all at once. File, save, go back to my screen, refresh, and now what do you have?
It's kind of...
The background is all red, right? Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. With span, you group things together so you can do things to them. You understand? All right, so what would be the difference in span and div? So you'll notice that is Shane, this span... still stays in this sentence, right? It doesn't go to the next line. It stays where I put it. Okay? Div is just like span, but the difference is this is called an inline span is called an inline element. It's inline. Div is called a block element. A block element is simply an element that kind of is set apart. It would cause something to go to the next line. So if I go here to span, change that to div, change the end tag to div. Since it's a block element and not an inline element, it's going to look a little different. Save it. Notice how it's got its own little line, it's got its own long block. Okay? So the only thing you really need to remember is span and div allow you to group things together so you can do certain things to them. And span does not separate the things you're grouping together away from everything else, and div does separate it. Got it?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
I think Jai, she gave me a look of, I don't quite got it.
I've got it. I'm just tired.
She got it. She's had a long day. Hey, my kids made straight A's. They both got awards today. Awesome. So proud of them. Man, they rock. Okay. They're very tired. All right, but pay attention. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this. Now you know the difference in span and div. I'm going to show you how you might really use those things. We're going to use something very similar. I removed the span. Let me go ahead and resave it. Refresh my screen. Now that I've gotten rid of my span and div, you guys should start following along. So go ahead and start coding everything that I code. You see the two lists on my screen, guys?
Yes.
All right. Let's say that I wanted to group these things together so I can move them around and put style on them. Okay? Maybe change their color, whatever. I want to group this because this is my banner. I want to group this because this is my main paragraph. And I want to group these two lists to be in their own group. And the reason I want to do that is I want this list, I want to move it up to right here. I don't want it to be below here. I want to group this whole list together, and then I want to move it up. You understand? So that's the power of like a span or a div, or rather in this case, a div. A div is best for this. I'm going to start grouping these things. So instead of using div or span on all of this, I'm going to use some new HTML5 elements. These HTML5 elements are just like div and span. Actually, they're just like div. They're block elements. They're not inline elements. Span is an inline element. These are block elements, which means they'll make things go to the next line, right? They're like a block that forces things to go to the next line. Okay, so these elements are header, main, and section. And then later on in another lesson, we're going to do footer. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to the title here. I'm going to type in, I'm going to wrap it in an element called header. So less than HEADER, greater than. I'm going to go to the next line. Less than / HEADER to close that tag. I'm going to space it out here. I'm going to put a style on each one of these just so you can see them. Without the style, you can't really tell they're there. So I'm going to put this style on there. So border, colon, so style equals, quote, border, colon, and I'm going to put 1 pixel. I'm going to put solid, and I'm going to put blue, color blue. All right, file, save. I'm going to move the next one. So this is my main paragraph. I want to put a tag called main. And notice this is header. This is not head. Don't get them confused. It's header. Okay? Got it, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to tab out. I'm going to put the ending tag for main. Less than / MAIN. I'm going to take this style and I'm going to put it on main also. So I'm basically just going to cut and paste it and put it on main. Cut it, Control V, or you can right click and choose paste. So the next one that I want to group is these two lists. So these are different sections. So a header is for like your header, your banner, the main part of your page. Main, it has meaning. It's like your main content. Okay. A section just means, oh, I've got a standalone piece in your document. Section. It's a section of your document. Got it? Got it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do section. Put the beginning tag above my H2 favorite animes. So I'm going to type in less than SECTION greater than sign. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of this list, my favorite anime list. I'm going to type in less than sign / section to end this tag. Okay, so I've closed off my section. I'm going to do one more. Section around my favorite book series. So I'm typing less than sign, SECTION. Go to the end of that list, type in less than sign / SETION greater than sign. Close that off. I'm going to take that border from my main, and I'm going to cut and paste it and put it inside of each of those section tags. And then my final section tag. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go down to, you guys may not have this on your screen. I think I did an extra list in the previous lessons. No big deal. You just want to do section on your 2 list. But on my 3rd list, I'm going to add one more just to show you it's the same thing. So I'm going to put div, D-I-V. Now, you didn't have section. In HTML4, you didn't have something called section. So most people would do something like this. They'd go div ID equals section. And then they would close section. So you had double quotes around section. And then we close the div. And then they go to the bottom here. Type in the closing tag. So it would be less than sign / div. So basically what happened is people use div the same way so often that with HTML5, they decided to go ahead and make those concepts a real tag. So people used to do div space ID equals header. Div space ID equals section. Div space ID equals main. People use that so much, they said, why don't we just go ahead and make tags for those things? Got it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to add, before I go and view it, I forgot to add the style. I'm going to cut and paste the style one more time. And I'm going to add it to that div, just so we can see it. Okay. File, save, go back to my browser, click refresh, and look at there. So we now have these things grouped. The borders show you what the groups are. Got it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, everything's in blue there. All right, so I want to take this favorite book series and I want to move it up to the right here. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to change the style. Remember how we said that styling, CSS, is used for formatting and coloring and giving your HTML data a look and feel, right? That's what we're doing. We're using these inline style tags to give this HTML data a look and feel. Okay. My chair is squeaking at me the whole time, but that's okay. We'll move forward. Okay, so I'm going to go to each of these sections and go ahead and add the new styles. I'm going to set the width. I'm going to set width equals, let's say, 45%. I want the width of this div to equal 45% of the width of the screen, of the browser window. Okay? So you have a browser. Its entire width equals 100%. If you cut it in half, it's 50%, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to set the width of this div to 45%, a little less than half. I'm going to cut and paste the width of this section, and I'm going to put it on the other two sections. Width 45%, width and 45%. Okay. I've added the width to each section. I'm going to go ahead and change this main section to encompass my whole document, including those sections. So sections are going to be children of main. And I'm going to set the main to have a width also. width colon, I want to say 95%. Okay. I've changed my main element to have all the other elements inside of it. I'm considering the other elements to be my main content. Inside the main, I have sections also. In those sections, I've changed their width to be 45%. That 45% would be 45% of the parent element. The parent element is the element that this element is inside of. So main is the parent element because this section is inside of main. I've basically, if you go back and look at my page, I've made this favorite anime section and favorite book series section be 40. I basically made this div, instead of being all the way across the screen, I've set it to half that size as far as width. Width is, you know, from left to right, right? Width. Height is from up and down, right? Okay. So I want the width to be smaller, and I want this book series to kind of move up. I want it to float, basically. So the way we can do that is to tell it to float. I want it to float up, all right? So I'm going to set this one to float, and I'm going to set this one to float, right? Now, again, we'll go over the different options you have later on in other lessons. I'm actually going to have a separate series that's going to be a 5-minute video series on CSS, and we'll go in depth on what these values are. Okay, so for right now, we just need to know I'm going to use float, and I'm going to make it float to the left. And what that means is this div will float to the left, which is here. It's already there, and then this div will float to the left also. But if there's enough space, it's going to float up first. So it's going to float from here all the way up to here. Okay? Got it?
Yes.
All right, let's see how it works out. Let me go ahead and add float. So behind my width, I'm going to type in float colon, and I'm going to put left and then semicolon. Do that for each of the sections. float left semicolon. Okay, the next section. float colon left semicolon. All right. I'm going to go ahead and choose File and save it. So we've put a div, or rather these sections around the content. We put those sections within the main content. We've changed the sections to be the size of a 45% width, so 45% of the browser as far as width, and we're telling them to float to the left, which sometimes if there's enough space, that means they'll float up. Saved it. I'm going to hit refresh, and you'll see how they floated up. Got it?
Yes.
Pretty neat, huh? So now they're all side by side. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I was able to use the style to move stuff around. Okay, so I don't want my last list, and you guys don't have this list probably, but for me, I don't want my list the last one to float. So I want to tell it that basically I don't want there to be anything floating on the left or right side of that last div. Right now, there's something floating on the left side, right here, the favorite book series. I'm going to tell it I don't want anything to be floating on either side of that div. So I'm going to say clear. Clear is the command for that. So clear, and I want to say both for both sides. So type in CLEAR colon both, BOTH semicolon. File, save. Okay, got it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If you notice, some of these things are kind of scrunched together. See how close this is to that line, right? See how close these things are together? Does that make sense, Jai? See how they are?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to basically make those things have more space. I don't want these words to be so close to the borders or so close to each other. In HTML, a lot of elements have what's called padding. So padding will actually say, I want more space around this content that's inside of this div. So I'm going to add padding to these two. So I'm going to say padding 5 pixels. Pixels, again, are basically, think of them as just 5 dots, okay? It'd be the width of 5 dots. So I put 5 pixels there, 5 there, and I'm going to go to main. I'm going to put 5 pixels there. So PADDING, 5 pixels, semicolon. Okay, file, save, refresh. And you'll notice when I refresh, things kind of bounced a little bit, right? So basically it put space around them. Before they were kind of crunched up against this line. Well, let's get rid of the blue lines. So I'm going to get rid of the borders in each one of them. All right, I think I got rid of all of them. File, save, refresh. Okay, so as you can see, I got rid of the blue lines. I basically grouped each of these pieces into different sections or divs, right, inside the document. And I made the one list float up next to the other list, right? So basically, we're grouping things together using the header tag, the section tag, the div tag. We're grouping them with what's called a block element versus a span. And we're using inline style to kind of move things around and to add spacing around them, the padding, right? So this is how people create the good-looking websites with CSS and with styles, right? There's so much stuff you can do with styles. We won't be able to cover it all, real quickly. We'll slowly do a little bit at a time, especially in the CSS lessons. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
But do you see what I mean when I say HTML is your data and CSS is the styling is how you format that data? I changed the format. You get it?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that is it for our lesson today. What do you guys think? Pretty neat?
Yep.
Jai used to the wig?
No.
Just barely? Okay. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. So in our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and style the very top, like for example where mine says Shane's Coding Zoo Introduction. We're going to add styles around it to basically put a black or a blue banner. And then we're going to change the color of the writing. And then we're going to go get a picture and we're going to put my own little picture, whatever I want to put as far as an animal, next to that title. So we're basically going to create a banner for my web page and get it to start looking a lot nicer. So we're going to do that together on the next lesson. Before the next lesson, check out the website www.p as in Paul, EXELSAM.com. You'll find there's some royalty-free images. That means these are images you can copy. Okay, go there and you can search for an animal. So, for example, you could search for a lion, and pick out an animal that you want to be represented by on the Coding Zoo. So if I go there and search for a lion, I get options for tons of lions. Just pick out any image you want and right-click on that image and choose Save Image As. So before our next lesson, go ahead and do that and pick out an image that you will use in the next lesson. And that image will represent you. That animal will represent you in the zoo. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next lesson. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and click that bell. Please remember to go ahead and give us feedback. We'd love to hear back from you how we can make this better. Have a good one. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. This is the 7th lesson. We are going to cover the div tag and the, dang it.
Heading. I didn't.
Oh, hang on. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to cover, hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to cover the div tag and the, what's after div?
I don't know.
Span. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.